Hi guys. I want to answer a question. What is ketogenics? And this would be a simple way for me to just grab this video and post it to somebody if I have to. Ketogenics is a very anti-inflammatory diet, way of life, whatever you will. Ketogenics has saved my life, honestly. I came back from Iraq with PTSD, anxiety, depression, and I started becoming physical. I started having nightmares. I started questioning whether or not my life was even valuable enough to stay around to enjoy the life that I have now, which thank God I did. Ketogenics does a number of things for people. Not only is it just an anti-inflammatory diet, you have to take that even further. And please respect the text that I put that into. The word diet may be demonizing to somebody, but I use it in its literal form. A diet is a pattern of eating by an animal or a human. So let's leave it at that. Please, it's what I call it. It is what it is. It's my way of life. I'm going to eat like this for the rest of my life, but it's a diet. It's not a fad diet. It's a way of life, but it's still a diet. So basically on a ketogenic diet, you have higher levels of fat, moderate protein, and low to no carb, I tell people, because sometimes people go no carb and they're completely fine. A higher level of fat, moderate protein, low carb. And basically what you do is you take all that junk, glucose buildup that your body is taking complex carbs, excessive refined sugars, refined carbohydrates, and turning it into this excess glucose in the body. When you have multiple fuel sources in your body at one time, protein is going to get used and glucose is always going to get used. But if there's fat in your diet, it has nowhere to go. Well, there are some things that are essential in your diet. Your good bacteria in your gut actually make vitamins. And if you're not healing your gut, if you're not keeping it healthy, if you're not keeping yourself in a state of health, well-being, that stuff is going to get affected. So Alzheimer's patients, dementia patients, patients with epilepsy, women with PCOS, women that have not been able to have babies yet have came on the ketogenic diet and became fertile enough to actually conceive. Men that have had erectile dysfunction problems, somebody with arteriosclerosis, the heart function in general, overall, you would think, wait a second, you're telling me I'm having a higher level of fat, my heart's going to stop, my arteries are going to get clogged. That's a complete myth. That's something that we've been told because of bad research that was done back in 1948 by a gentleman called Ansel Keys. And if you actually look the guy up, Ansel Keys, you can actually look at his research. He was going to do research on like 22 countries, but when it was all said and done, there were only 6-7 countries that actually correlated to what partially his theory was. So he was using that whole causation equals correlation thing, which is very inaccurate anyway, and it was found out that most of the work that he did was not even, it wasn't even like proper work. Like, they didn't find any kind of like realistic evidence in his study that actually proved saturated fat or fat in general was bad for you, and that's what was causing heart conditions. So you can take that even further and say, you know, people with anxiety, depression, PTSD can be on this, and it makes them very efficient. It wakes your brain up. It actually pulls that crap glucose and stuff out of your body, and it actually lets you start living off of good dietary and body fat. And there are ketones that are produced. Your liver will use fat as its energy. And while it uses fat as its energy, the byproduct of it breaking down fat is acetoacetate, beta-hydroxybutyrate, and acetone. And whenever you go to, like, when you start a ketogenic diet, you can test with strips. And when you pee on the little strips to see what form of ketosis you're in, you're testing for that acetoacetate that's in your urine. That's the excess that your body has not learned to regulate yet because you're newer, and eventually most people do regulate. Now, when you get the blood glucose meter, you're testing for beta-hydroxybutyrate. That's what's in your blood. And you get the breath meter, that's acetone. So you have three ketones: beta hydroxybutyrate, acetoacetate, and acetone. That's your fuel now. Beta hydroxybutyrate basically unlocks the brain barrier, the blood-brain barrier, so your brain just wakes up like it has never woke up before. Like, you're faster, your joints don't hurt, you don't need nowhere near as much sleep anymore. You just feel like a completely different person. Your body heals from the inside out, and through the process of it doing that, you drop all kinds of weight. A lot of your markers and stuff all come down. Now, people think, you know, your LDL, HDL, your cholesterol, your triglycerides and stuff, that it used to be that your LDL marker was a good indication on where your cholesterol was at. That's not how they do it anymore. A general marker on the condition of like your overall cholesterol is your triglycerides divided by your HDL. And it should be a 2-to-1 ratio, HDL into triglycerides. But still, that's irrelevant too. They're finding out the way that they used to do a lot of the medical studies and stuff and how they gauge people's markers is not very accurate. Because if that was the case and they got all that stuff right, why did we go from $200 billion in type 2 diabetes, like what we're costing the medical industry, to almost $400 billion now? Because it's not working. When we were kids, we were taught to stay away from fat, low calorie, all that stuff. And they would put on the Lego boxes or the Eggo boxes and the cereal boxes, low fat, low fat. But they were putting in tons of grain that was genetically modified. They were putting in refined carbohydrates and sugar that were just tearing us up. Well, if that was the case, I'm 32 years old. And 32 years of my life, it's all been about low fat, low fat, low fat. Why is it not getting any better? Why are people not getting healthier? It's because low fat doesn't work. Low fat in the diet is used for so many things. It's cholesterol function, vitamin production. It's used for your brain. Your organs actually have to have coatings of fat on it, so when you fall, you get into an accident or something like that, it's what protects you. It's, your inflammation in your artery response, where your low-density lipoprotein carries your cholesterol to the inflammation spot, or whenever a cell is damaged, or whenever you work out real hard and you have cells that are swollen and sore, and cholesterol has to be carried from the production through the liver to the inflamed spot because that's its job, and then HDL, your high-density lipoprotein, has to come behind and rip it back off, and either LDL recycles what's not used as it's carrying it through the system and dispersing it. HDL comes behind and rips off what cholesterol was left and dumps it and gets rid of it through the liver. So if we have this system that works so great, and fat is not bad for us, and protein is not bad for us, and we're trying to keep our carbs low as possible, which would be 20 or less on this type of so your ratios are 75% fat, 20% protein, 5% carbohydrates. And for me, that might look like, like 140 grams of fat, 105 grams of protein, and 20 carbohydrates. Well, that's a pretty big meal. You got 9 calories per gram of fat, 4 calories per gram of protein, and 4 calories per gram of carb. Well, look at the fat number. 9 calories per gram of fat has 9 calories. You have almost twice the amount of energy expenditure coming from fat as you do protein or carbs. So why should we cut something that's so dense and has so much energy retention to it that your body can use out of our diet? So we increase the amount of carbohydrates and protein, and we have to have so much more of it to equal what a regular meal should look like. You notice how plates used to be regular size small plates, and then as time passed they got bigger and bigger and bigger, and now we got people that are just trying to stuff their face full of as much crap as they possibly can. That's because that's what we've been conditioned to do. A ketogenic diet is a very anti-inflammatory, pro-health diet. It's great for diabetes, it's great for kidney disease, it's great for liver or fatty liver, it's great for thyroid issues, it's great for everything. It's great to restore your gut health, which we destroy with the standard American diet. But yet we keep letting our medical providers and stuff not want to talk about it, not recommend it, and everybody's got to be vegan, everybody's got to be vegetarian. Come on, guys, it's not even realistic. We should demonize what each other does as long as our end goal is to get healthy and we're actually doing something towards that instead of getting worse. So I urge you to look at ketogenic diet or way of life, for the people that get upset by the word diet, to show you that there is another path out there than taking the dreaded road of my whole life has to be consumed by vegetables, and that's all I could ever have. Alright guys, I really appreciate you listening to this. Sorry for taking up so much time, but I wanted to explain this thoroughly. Keto on.